Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. It is the irony of ironies that Pakistan, which for the last several decades had flirted with the illusion that it could dominate the mountains of Afghanistan and use it as its strategic backyard, is now finding out as to how flawed its geostrategic policies have been. As the proverb goes, a nation that sows the wind must be ready to reap the whirlwind. The policymakers in both Islamabad and Rawalpindi have now gone past the stage of lamenting upon how ungrateful the Taliban has been to now recognizing the serious security challenge posed by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, also known as the Pakistani Taliban, that has pledged allegiance to the Afghan Taliban. On the 24th of December, Pakistan bombed Afghanistan's eastern Paktika province, killing at least about 46 people. The local Taliban officials in Afghanistan said that most of those who had been killed were actually women and children. Pakistan, initially hesitant to officially comment on the incident, admitted through its sources that the Pakistani army had bombed the hideouts of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. A total of 4 locations had been bombed, and just 4 days later, the Taliban opened heavy fire on Pakistan's outposts at the border. Islamabad condemned the incident as an unprovoked attack by the Taliban, but Kabul hit back by claiming that the heavy fire of the border outposts was in retaliation for the Pakistani airstrikes on Paktika. And soon there were reports that the Pakistani soldiers were moving in to occupy the Wakhan corridor, Afghanistan's chicken neck corridor that connects the country with China. But the Taliban was quick to deny that the Pakistani soldiers were nowhere in the Wakhan corridor. On the 10th of January, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan captured 18 Pakistani nuclear engineers in the Dera Ismail Khan district of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. For years, the ISI had been the mentor and the benefactor of the Taliban. But now, the Afghan Taliban, through its proxy, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, has carried out repeated attacks inside Pakistan. The triumph of the Taliban in Kabul energized the rank and file of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. TTP-related violence in Pakistan has dramatically surged, with nearly 1,000 deaths reported, primarily amongst the security personnel in 2023. The violence continued in 2024 as well, with the Center for Research and Security Studies, an Islamabad-based think tank, described as the deadliest year in nearly a decade. According to the Islamabad-based think tank, 2,526 people were killed in attacks in 2024, including nearly 700 security personnel, 900 civilians, and approximately 900 militants. These figures mark the highest death toll since 2016, when 2,432 fatalities had been recorded. It is another irony of ironies that the very strategy of a war by 1,000 cuts that was deployed by Pakistan against India is now being used by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan against the Pakistani state. Make no mistake about this, founded in 2007, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan shares a common ideology with the Afghan Taliban. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan's stated objective is the subversion of the Pakistani state as it exists to establish a new form of governance that would adhere to the Taliban's narrow interpretation of the Sharia law. So how does Pakistan find itself in this predicament? Well, it all started in 1979 when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. The American CIA poured weapons and other resources to back the Afghan Mujahideen. Pakistan's then president, General Zia-ul-Haq, who feared that the Soviets might invade into Balochistan, allied closely with the CIA against the Soviet presence. It was under General Zia that Pakistan swung decisively in favor of a policy of radicalization. An estimated 90,000 Afghans, including the likes of Mullah Omar, the founder of the Taliban, were trained by Pakistan's ISI during the 1980s. Pakistan believed that it could use the turmoil and instability of Afghanistan to its advantage by backing a radical, hardline, obscurantist group which had no vision of a modern world. When the Taliban was formally formed in 1994, Benazir Bhutto, the then Pakistani Prime Minister, called the Taliban her children. After the 9/11 terror attacks, when the United States went after the Taliban in a relentless campaign of bombing to smoke out the Taliban, as Donald Rumsfeld put it, Pakistan, under yet another military general, Pervez Musharraf, flouted George Bush's ultimatum: either you're with us or against us. He decided instead to both run with the hares and to hunt with the hounds. In fact, Musharraf has gone on record to praise the Taliban and also the Haqqani network. What Pakistan could not have predicted was the nature in which the Taliban would metamorphose over the decades. The genie of radicalization, once released from the bottle, is unlikely to go back. The Taliban is flush with the victory that it has won over the Americans. It no longer sees Pakistan and the ISI as its benefactor and tutor. The TTP stated objective, as we said, is to destroy the Pakistani state as it exists. The Talibs, that is the students of the ISI, are now knocking on the gates of Pakistan to give an examination of the very lessons of insurgency that they had learned from the Pakistani generals. This is Pakistan's war by 1,000 cuts, and it will have to fight it out at a time when its economy is in a pretty bad shape, when the Americans have no initiative to assist them, and when China, Pakistan's all-weather friend, views the Taliban favorably. The thorny plant of religious extremism, which Islamabad watered in the graveyard of the empires, now threatens to consume Pakistan. Myanmar has been in the grip of a deadly civil war ever since the ouster of Aung San Suu Kyi in February 2021, and the ethnic rebels, through their spirited campaign, have pushed back and shrunk the frontiers under junta's control. Now, the Arakan Army, one of the key ethnic rebel outfits that has witnessed some outstanding military victories, now controls 15 out of the 18 provinces in the Rakhine State. And with this, the Arakan Army has effectively brought the entire border between Myanmar and Bangladesh under its control. The military junta claims that it will hold elections this year, but almost all opposition parties have condemned these claims of elections as nothing more than a sham. Can the Myanmar junta turn around the reverses it has suffered at the hands of the rebels? Our next report gives you more details. This video, put out by the Arakan Army ethnic rebels, will give you a glimpse of the ferocious fighting that unfolded for the capture of An, a Myanmarese junta's regional army headquarters in the Rakhine State. The incident is from the 18th of December, and the drone footage shows people running away from the damaged building areas, while explosions and gunfire can be heard in the background. This is being described as the bloodiest of the battles that has been fought in the Myanmar Civil War for the capture of a strategic town. The Arakan Army rebels used artillery rockets and rifle fire to tear chunks off the buildings in which hundreds of the junta soldiers were hiding. For the coup leader General Min Aung Hlaing, this was yet another humiliating defeat after a year of military setbacks. For the first time, his regime has lost control of an entire border that is 270 kilometers long, dividing Myanmar from Bangladesh, which is now wholly under the control of the Arakan Army. In fact, the Arakan Army rebels now control pretty much the whole of the Rakhine province, except for the capital city of Sittwe. The Myanmar junta is now trying to stage a counterattack. An airstrike by the junta on a village under the control of the Arakan Army has resulted in the death of over 40 people and has injured 20 others. In the Shan and the Kaya states, the ethnic rebels have used drones with deadly effect to push back the Myanmar junta. But the junta too has been readjusting its strategy as well, countering the crude drones brought in by the rebels with drones that the junta has purchased from China for both combat and surveillance.
We don't know the type of drones that military are using, but these drones are using advanced technology. Their drones can fly higher than ours. Their drones can fly between 1500 meters to 2000 meters, and our drone jammers can't cover them.
The people of Myanmar, who've been repeatedly displaced in the civil war, lament over the living conditions that they've been reduced to. Food is scarce, and young men are often forcibly recruited by the junta to fight the insurgency.
Before the coup, our family was poor, but we had good living conditions in our house and we could store rice from our fields. After that, we lost everything in the war. My husband said we used to be humans, but now we are like dogs. He is very depressed and drinks a lot. It is like a misfortune in our family and we are suffering.
On the 4th of January, as Myanmar celebrated its Independence Day with a lot of pomp and splendor, the military junta released more than 5,800 prisoners. Among those still imprisoned by the junta is the country's former leader and Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi. The 79-year-old is serving a 27-year-long sentence tied to criminal charges that range from incitement and election fraud to corruption. At this moment, the Myanmar junta controls just about 40% of the territory in the country, although it still has almost two-thirds of the country's 330 townships under its control. But the clock is ticking. The rebels have been emboldened by their success, and the junta will find it extremely hard to turn the tide of this war. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and the American President Donald Trump share an interesting bonhomie. In his first term, Donald Trump had referred to Kim Jong-un as the little rocket man. And just weeks before Donald Trump's inauguration for his second presidency, Pyongyang has tested a new hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile, which according to North Korea, will reliably contain any rivals in the Pacific region. The Biden administration that is on its way out believes that Russia has plans to share advanced space and satellite technologies with North Korea. And much to the chagrin of Washington, Anthony Blinken, who was in Seoul this week, has said that in his assessment, Moscow is now very close to reversing its decades-long policy for denuclearization of North Korea. So how good is this new hypersonic missile that was tested by the North Koreans? And what message is Kim Jong-un trying to send to Washington? Our next poll gets more details.
This was the moment when North Korea tested its latest hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile that is designed to strike targets in the remote areas of the Pacific. In the crosswires is the American military base of Guam. The test flight of this new hypersonic ballistic missile was personally monitored by Kim Jong-un alongside his daughter Ju-ae. According to the North Korean media, the missile traveled a distance of 1,500 kilometers at speeds that exceeded Mach 12. That is 12 times the speed of sound, with the missile reaching a peak altitude of 100 kilometers before the hypersonic glide vehicle separated from the missile to evade interception and to deliver precision strikes. But what has ruffled feathers of military strategists in Seoul and in Pentagon are the North Korean claims that this new missile performed a pop-up maneuver before separating from the hypersonic glide vehicle. The South Korean military immediately issued a statement that Pyongyang is exaggerating the capabilities of its new missile.
We believe North Korea is exaggerating the capabilities of its missile system, including the flight distance and second peak. According to the analysis by South Korea, US and Japan, the missile flew about 1100 kilometers and there was no second peak. Monday's missile test was likely a follow-up to another hypersonic intermediate-range ballistic missile test last April, and it would be difficult to use such systems in a relatively small territory like the Korean Peninsula.
Just a handful of nations such as Russia, China and Iran have hypersonic missiles, while the United States and India have conducted successful tests of hypersonic missiles in 2024. At the end of 2024, Kim Jong-un had slammed the United States, Japan and South Korea of being a nuclear military bloc of aggression in the region. And North Korea's missile program was a counter to the American military buildup.
The alliance between the US, Japan and ROK has expanded into a nuclear military bloc for aggression, and the ROK has turned into an out-and-out anti-communist outpost of the US. This reality clearly shows to which direction we should advance and what we should do and how.
According to military experts, North Korea is gearing up for additional tests of submarine-launched ballistic missiles and military satellites, with the ultimate aim of developing miniaturized nuclear warheads and intercontinental ballistic missiles that are equipped with MIRVs. In the first presidency of Donald Trump, Kim Jong-un had held 3 high-profile meetings with the then-American president. Trump had become the first sitting American president to set foot on North Korean soil near the DMZ. But Trump's diplomacy to denuclearize North Korea back then had yielded little results. North Korea's saber-rattling has all the indications of Pyongyang's desire for more diplomatic parleys with the incoming Trump administration. But the question is, will Pyongyang's missile launches lead to another high-profile meeting between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump?
The beginning of the year 2025 has brought in a new intensity in the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Rwanda-backed M23 rebels have captured the strategic town of Masisi. Any possibility of a peace deal between the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels and the Democratic Republic of Congo was snuffed out when in December, the Angola-mediated peace talks collapsed. Since 2021, when the M23 rebels began capturing large swathes of territory, thousands of people have been driven out from their homes, plunging the region into a humanitarian crisis. But the question is this: why has peace proven to be so elusive in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo? And why have peace talks yielded so little for the people in this war-torn part of the world? Take a look.
An uneasy calm looms over the streets of Lubero. The front line between the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels and the army of the Democratic Republic of Congo is constantly shifting. In a span of just the last 1 month, more than 100,000 Congolese people have been forced to flee from their homes. The key towns of Masisi, with a population of more than 40,000 people, have been captured by the Rwandan-backed rebels, just 80 kilometers north of Goma. The Congolese armed forces, who have been pushed back by the M23 rebels, have sought refuge in the Lubero village, and there have been reports of widespread looting. Not just by the M23 rebels who have been eating away at the Congolese territory, but looting by the soldiers of the Democratic Republic of Congo, who were meant to push back the M23 rebels and keep the Congolese people safe.
We are really suffering from the plundering, and all those who are doing the plundering is our military. We can't say anything because on one hand we are afraid of the M23, and on the other hand we are afraid of our military. We don't know what to do anymore. We don't know where to go. Being afraid of the enemy and being afraid of our own, we now have heart problems.
But why are the forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo on the retreat? The Democratic Republic of Congo just last week shuffled the upper echelons of its military. Wazalendu, a disparate group of militias fighting against the M23 rebels, along with the Congolese army, has accused the Congolese army of having been infiltrated. The M23 rebels have a reputation of muzzling all dissent in the areas they capture, and according to the Wazalendu, the reason the Congolese army is facing serious reversals on the battlefield is because the military leadership has been compromised.
The enemy is within 50 kilometers of here, so it's a threat as well. But as I said, we have confidence in our armed forces and the defense forces that are there, and we have confidence that they will defend this community of Lubero.
But few people in the village of Lubero are willing to believe that the Congolese forces will stand their ground. For more than 30 years, the mineral-rich eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo has been ground down by incessant warfare. By competing local and foreign armed groups, the M23 rebels' latest offensive to capture Masisi was launched just ahead of planned summit in the Angolan capital that was supposed to bring peace to the region. But talks between the DRC President Felix Tshisekedi and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame were abruptly called off over disagreements on terms of the proposed peace deal. And now, the villages along the front lines in the Democratic Republic of Congo are bracing themselves for the next assault by the M23 rebels.
And with that's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the RD that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.